players in, what is it, Django, Kolmari, and ETC were somewhat unknown going into the start of the year at least, but are getting good names for themselves.
And I think all three of those players have made names for themselves this year. Kolmari getting top 4 in Germany.
Yeah.
ETC's just got this reputation. When he looked like he was going to qualify,
yeah.
it was, I knew ETC was good all along. And Django, of course, also going to BlizzCon with HGG, and sort of the focal point around that team as well.
Yeah. As you can see here, we're having to fill for a little bit here, as we are just as much rogue-sided as you are. But I think we can guess here that maybe the Druid hasn't got off to the best start, given the lack of wild growths that have been coming down in the first few turns.
Talk a little bit about these lineups here. Kolmari has brought the Odd Warrior, the Taunt Druid, the Even Warlock, and the Odd Rogue. Very polarized stuff indeed. And the same for Zorkthar. He's brought Quest Rogue, which there is a lot of in this tournament.
Yes.
That got banned out, of course, by Kolmari's sort of fairly slow lineup. His own Odd Warrior, Even Warlock, and Token Druid. And obviously with Last Hero Standing, you really want those counter attempts. You're not necessarily after a nice flat base. You're more after a way to counter your opponent's lineups.
Yeah, Last Hero Standing lineups take a really weird spin in that they you can't really define them as anything. Whereas in in Conquest, you will have usually aggro lineups, anti-control lineups, any kind of specific strategy where you have to target one deck in particular. Last Hero Standing, it's usually very polarized decks, I find, that have strong matchups against some decks, because you can actually decide where in the series they come down, what you're going to be facing against with them.
Yeah, and I think when we looked through the opening here, although this may not work out because of Zorkthar's not so great draw, I think we felt that Kolmari needed to win with his Rogue against the Evenlock to have a good chance in this one.
Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely what we were feeling, because for Kolmari, the Odd Rogue is going to be struggling, I think, which is interesting that he opened up with it, because as Lorinda and I were talking about, lining up the Evenlock with Odd Rogue is really the best shot here for Kolmari to get a win with it at all. And so lining up with it first was, I imagine, hoping that Zorkthar would start with what is probably his weakest deck in Evenlock. Hasn't worked out though, because as you can see here, we're getting a pretty prime display of the power of the power of a Spreading Plague, leading to an incredibly swift turnaround for Zorkthar and a very nice game one.
Yeah, that went very, very quickly. And like you say, he probably just tried to second guess that one a little bit.
Yep.
And players came up to Darek and said, "You're winning?" Like, as the Token Druid, because you queued into like 3 times in a row. It was quite funny.
Yeah. Don't out that I suck to everyone. I'm sure no one's figured that out yet.
We just queue into better things.
Oh yeah, of course.
So Kolmari has indeed gone with that Even Warlock, looking to get that immediate sort of fight back. And you do see this a lot in Last Hero Standing. A lot of the matches are either 3-2 or 3-0, because if you lose your counter matchup, you're often in trouble. And
this is, with the transition, I find, from the more classic Token Druid with Violet Teachers to the more recent one with Chain Gangs and Strong Shells, I find this is one of the matchups that has definitely changed a lot, and I would argue improved for the Token Druid, because you are not losing the game outright to Defile. That's kind of how it felt before, where you'd make a big board, they Defile it away, they do it twice, they Hellfire your board, the game's over. Whereas this time, I feel like you can get a good amount of just mid-range board stuff happening to the point where they can't really deal with it every time.
Yeah, and I think what's happened with this deck, it took myself a little bit, but also players like Fino, a little while to be convinced that this new build was better.
Okay.
But when you play all the matchups through, you don't lose much in your favourables, and your unfavourables and your 50-50, because the mirror becomes so much better that it's definitely worth making this new version the right version at the moment, the standard version.
So Kolmari is now left with no board clears available quite yet. Not that it would be all too powerful at the moment, but the downside of that is that he will likely be taking a fair bit of damage while he does try and stabilize this board state.
Yeah, and one of the problems you find with this deck is you sometimes have to use your buffs just to get rid of a giant.
Right,
and then
that
things
is miserable.
fall apart.
Then it becomes like you're playing against Taunt Druid or something, which is a miserable matchup because everything just goes into these giant taunts.
Kolmari not got the most exciting of hands, but that happens when you get a giant early. Quite often the rest of your deck is geared to just playing stuff. And if you play the giant, suddenly this stuff gets pushed back to turn 6, and then your turns become kind of sad. But Zorkthar just doing that thing where you stay alive until turn 10. when that card happens.
And this is fine. Like, up against even Warlock, one of the main places where it goes wrong is they hit you in the face 2 or 3 times with a Mountain Giant, and then your later turns have to be so defensive that it becomes the situation of, oh, if I play Ultimate Infestation, I die. If I play Whispering Wood Soul of the Forest, I just die on board. So making these defensive plays by Zorkthar as he ramps up towards Ultimate Infestation should hopefully, for his sake, get him to the point where, even though his hand is miserable right now, I'm not trying to deny that, he should hopefully be in the point where he can Ultimate Infestation without dying.
I feel that Black Knight is a nod to tournament play. Mainly the mirror in particular, where you're playing against each other's Hooked Reavers is kind of the whole game. It's not the whole game, of course, but yeah, whoever lands a Hooked Reaver and it doesn't die has got such a massive advantage because they've got basically 3 giants in their deck.
Yeah.
And so Black Knight is one way of doing that. Obviously, Sack Pact is the other way. And you find in tournaments you see it a lot more than on ladder where, you know, it doesn't do anything against mage. Yeah,
against the aggro decks, it's not going to be doing anything. If you're expecting a lot of the mirror, even a lot of hunter, I find, if you can snipe off a Witchwood Grizzly with that Black Knight, that is one heck of a tempo swing. Oh, this is a brave play from Zorkthar. I think realizing here that through the pickup of Spreading Plague, his turn 10 has diverged from Ultimate Infestation to Plague Soul of the Forest or Plague Strongshell.
I like this. And these are the plays you've got to make when you're looking in a bad spot. Like, it's brave, but it's the way that actually plays to win the Hearthstone game if he's not dead.
Yeah, so, well, there's what, 14 damage on the board. He's at 20 health. If there was 1 more mana for Kolmari, there would be the potential for exact lethal, I believe, through Hellfire. Obviously, Zorkthar has done a little bit of maths in his big old Norwegian head and realized there is no capability for lethal on this turn.
Turn 7 often a really bad turn for even lock.
It's
it's
true.
Something I bring up quite often, but obviously the way even numbers works is one thing, but also your 6 drops aren't that amazing anyway, so you end up either playing 2 mediocre cards or a 6 drop that is kind of mediocre and it costs you 7. And here's the results of that play he went for. He didn't die. He can defend his board, and next turn he can gain armor all ways he wants, or start the push to win the game.
I think I like this. I like it from both players. Like, Zorkthar setting up for the strongest turn possible, where he turns this around, is good. And for Kolmari realizing what his opponent was trying to do and stopping developing, because it just gives him more plagues. You do not want to give him any more scarabs.
Yeah, last time around when Kolmari was in Germany, I felt that he suffered from nerves strong. We talk about that a lot, but stronger than most, I think.
The Germany tour stop, we should say. He's usually in Germany, I would imagine, because he lives there.
Oh, okay, yeah. So the Germany tour stop.
Right.
HCT Germany, HCT Take TV. They he struggled with nerves quite strongly, and for a lot of players, when they get to sort of the top 8, they usually settle down because, hey, I'm not going to look like an idiot, I made the top 8. But I felt Kolmari put more and more pressure on himself as it went on.
Yeah, he was feeling the pressure big time.
And this time around, so far, no signs of any obvious misplays.
But yeah, I've liked a lot of what I've seen from both players. Yeah, the thing for Zorkthar was the only real big decision for me this game has been whether you Plague on turn 9 and set up for a UI where you don't die, or you save it back for a turn as he did, and then you try and go for a big swing turn. And I think this has worked out quite a lot better for him.
You can see how it would have gone the other way. Those taunts would have been taken down pretty easily. Then the UI, what do you target? And then you've got a 5/5 that hasn't got taunt, and I think he'd be dead by now pretty much.
He also would have been very vulnerable to Mossy Horror if he'd just gone for the Scarabs without buffing them up.
Yeah, that's a very good point indeed.
He did take a lot of damage anyway in the meanwhile, because he just did nothing on turn 9, which is the obvious downside.
But, I mean, it's weird. In some matchups, chipping away for 2 extra damage is absolutely crucial.
Yeah.
And in some, you can just go as low as you want within reason. Like, you know the key numbers. You know, there it is. Hellfire is going to do you for a maximum of 6 with 2 Hellfires. And
the board clears really have just come at the perfect time for Kolmari. Earlier on, when it was just, Arcane Tyrants and this... these Saronite chain gangs didn't line up that well, but now that we are inevitably going to be heading towards Whispering Wood Soul of the Forest or Giggling Soul of the Forest, something like that, these defiles become like absolute gold dust.
Yep, Zorkthar can die to double Hellfire now if he doesn't put any taunts in the way, but again, sometimes you just have to say, okay, if he's got it, I lose.
Well, he's dead on board if he doesn't do any trading or anything.
Yeah, okay, if he sits there with his ghoul and just looks at his opponent, then yes, I agree.
Fair point.
But I think something we've seen more and more from the top players this year is the ability to really assess risk.
Yeah.
I know it's always been a part of the top players' play that they would take chances that look risky, but I think this year from maybe the top 12 players, we've seen a new level of that, a new level of, especially Hunter Ace, just going, you know what? I don't think you've got this card, or I don't care if you know, I'm dead if you've got this in the long run.
And I think Token Druid is a deck that tests your mettle and how willing you are to take risks more than most other decks in Hearthstone, because so often you just have to like throw down your Whispering Woods and say, if they have the clear, they have it, I'm losing anyway. Which is not easy for a lot of Hearthstone players to make that decision.
I did quite well with this deck because I never see danger coming anyway. Just like, oh, I can wait, I'll be okay.
You just play the green card each turn.
Just get told, no, I do the opposite. I don't wait too long normally. But then people say, hey, you're really brave with this deck. I'm like, oh, could I have died? So it's fine.
Well, like he knows no fear.
Yeah, knows anything.
Nothing. Yeah.
And it's still a bit messy here.
I mean, even if you're like, you can't find anything better, Hellfire this turn is fine. It clears off the board. He's even going for it straight away. Like I was wondering there might be something better with Defile this turn, but this just works perfectly, doesn't it? You set up lethal very handily, you clear their board. Even if they go for a board of measly little taunts here, like Malfurion, you can go Spellbreaker, Amethyst, Spellstone, and while you may not have lethal through a Malfurion, you're doing a lot of damage.
And keeping these big, narrow boards versus Druid is always very tasty, because their spot removal, as we know, is pretty grim.
Especially as
Geisted.
Yeah, exactly. Not even any Spellstones now.
The change in game plan from Kolmari wasn't scared of going wide for a little bit, or not too wide. Now he's just keeping it with the big guys, ready to finish it all off. And Zorkthar urgently needs to find a way to do Whispering Woods and Soul of the Forest on a board where he's not under threat of lethal. And that is where Malfurion could help him out if he can just taunt up, hang in there for a couple of turns. Yeah. Buy himself one turn where he can take another hefty slap to the face.
So all Kolmari really needs to do here is play around Plague. I think if he does that and doesn't die to a big Plague Soul of the Forest that he can't clear, he should be fine.
Yeah, that double Defile is doing great work. Just by being in his hand, it's allowing him to just play how he likes.
So does that mean maybe, because as I said, the play, like the base play I was looking at the start is Spellstone into Spellbreaker, and then you push a lot of damage through to face. But that's just one more minion on board. Could be the difference between living and dying, which is why we see here, instead of the Spellbreaker to push damage to face, he's saying, you know what? I still probably set up lethal next turn. Let's take it nice and slow. I'm only going to put up a 7/7 with Taunt.
Yeah, put a 1/5 in the way of that. See how you get on.
It's still not perfect, because if they play Spreading Plague Soul of the Forest, you might not be able to clear up the 2/2 that comes out after it. I think with Double Defile, though, Kolmari should be safe from that.
Yeah, you're not overly concerned about a 2/2 for now. You've got 16 health, you've got a couple of big taunts of your own.
Zorkthar here, though, is going with the branching paths, I would imagine, because he is saying, first of all, Mossy Horror, I don't want to die to that. That's the first point of call. But the second one is saying, I guess he hopes this will be enough anyway. If you have enough clear to deal with all of this, I'm losing anyway.
Yeah, and also, I mean, it does put more damage onto the minions when they attack, in case you can find another way to clear later.
Yeah, I think that might be a little bit optimistic.
It's very optimistic. But again, Mossy Horror is the big deal here. He's dead to Mossy Horror if he doesn't do this. And you know, Kolmari's a long way through his deck by now.
I guess if you do go for Soul of the Forest, like if they have Defile, it gets cleared anyway. So you may as well go for higher attack. I think this is quite close, though. I'm not certain that this is necessarily the way to go.
But now the Spreading Plagues are out there, now Kolmari can do what he likes.
Yeah.
And that's when things get really nasty.
That's true, that's a good point. Yeah, even
so now he's just going as wide as he likes. He's going to put some hefty damage into face. Yeah, taunting up just in case of whatever.
Pushing everything to face, just showing why this is... I'm not going to say such a miserable matchup, because I am actually hearing conflicting opinions on it amongst the professional players.
Everybody says it's good, and then there's Fino, who says everything's the opposite of the truth and then proves that he is right and they're all wrong every time.
But that doesn't count, because he's Fino. He's really good at Hearthstone.
He is really good at Hearthstone.
Yeah. As now for Zorkthar, he's going to be thinking, is there any way I can survive? Giggling Inventor off the top, perhaps. Obviously, we can see there's pretty much nothing, but... Well, actually, even then, I suppose Defile would clear off Kolmari's own 7/7s, or Hooked Reavers, I should say.
Yeah, the weird thing with Token Druid is until you actually can't live any longer, you've always got the counter swing possibility, so it's very hard to just concede. You have to make them... I know it's the same in any Hearthstone, but really, sometimes we've seen Token Druid games where we counter people out and suddenly something sticks when your opponent hasn't got double Defile in their hand, because Zorkthar doesn't know that's there. They could be the bottom 2 cards for what he knows. And,
well, this is actually a pretty good cleanup of the board. I wasn't anticipating this much removal to be able to come down. Obviously still an awful lot of damage able to come through, but 3 damage off lethal does not equal lethal for Kolmari.
But who needs Defile when you have 6 minions on board?
Yeah.
You know, obviously making as many taunts as he can, so if something happens to go wrong, like the things we were just talking about where you can sometimes fight back, he's just kept all his safety nets in place, as well as 1 million damage ready for next turn.
He just needs to be able to get lethal through Giggling Floop, or Giggling Chain Gang, Giggling Floop, whatever, which I think we can see here. The Twilight Drake survives, I'm pretty sure. And then you just have lethal. Because
he's going to Defile, right?
There is a Defile clear. Yeah, that's what I'm saying up there. You have a 3 health guy, you attack him with one of the homunculuses, there's nothing at 6 or 7.
And therefore the 8 wins.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's just there already, you just Defile. And that is going to be it. The counter Q from Kolmari shows that while Spreading Plague is incredibly effective against a wide Odd Rogue board, less so up against an even Warlock, because even when you don't actually have the Mossy Horror in hand, we can see just the threat of it, the potential of a Mossy Horror there for Zorkthar was what led him to plays that I imagine he really didn't want to make.
And now we're into Techville, because they've both got even Warlock, they've both got Odd Warrior left. Yeah. Those matchups are basically 50% across the board, give or take, so it's going to be all about who has those bits and pieces that can help them out, who knows the matchups better.
Yeah.
I'm sure everybody's practiced hundreds of games of Odd Warrior Mirrors, because it's so much fun.
Well, I think you have to be quite old, actually, to have practiced hundreds of Odd Warrior Mirrors. So please, enlighten us.
So, no. Odd Warrior Mirrors, our time for fun.
We've casted quite a few of them.
We have.
I mean, the elephant in the room here, if you'll pardon the phrase, is that it can be very long. It's a bit of a meme matchup, to be honest, because it pretty much always goes through to fatigue. And how the decks are constructed influences it so heavily. But there are actually positives and negatives on either side of the both players here. If we do get through to an Odd Warrior Mirror at a later date, it could go either way, I think, still.
And here's the first step along that rocky route. Zorkthar queuing up the Warrior against the lock, so he thinks it's favoured. Otherwise he'd have queued up the Mirror.
Fair enough.
And taking his chance if he wins the Mirror with the other Odd Warrior.
I've heard Zorkthar talking some pretty big talk about Odd Warrior overall. He was one of the players I heard most harping on about how good it is against Death Rattle Hunter, which is a matchup that I think was pretty traditionally seen as being very Death Rattle Hunter favoured. But he finds through all the silence, the Super Collider, and the value through Dr. Boom, you can actually get there in the late game. It was quite interesting.
And you're talking about all that silence. He is playing Double Owl in this deck. So
which I like a lot. I like Double Owl.
He's also got a Tink Master chilling in the deck.
Which is... it's a very, very rough way of looking at it, but in certain matchups, it's kind of like a third Owl.
Yeah.
In terms of just dealing with death rattles, like if you have to get rid of in the mirror a Direhorn Hatchling, say, that's fine. You just transform it with the Tink Master and you're quite happy then.
And he's also got double Faceless, which is also a way of dealing with opposing minions just by trading face-to-face with them.
That doesn't come till next game though. Right now, we are in the Even Warlock versus Odd Warrior. And for Kolmari, well, let's be honest, he hasn't found a Mountain Giant for turn 3. This is not what you want to be doing in this matchup.
Yeah, and Zorkthar is just going to get away here. Super Collider always helps, obviously, because it's ridiculous. Not a lot else going on, but what is going on is that armor chipping away turn after turn. Yeah. Buying yourself time if an accident occurs, which it does occur. You do set up at boards against Odd Warrior sometimes because they have small amounts of removal compared to what we're used to with Control Warriors. But the trouble is, if you're on 68 health, you can take a couple of hits and not mind too much until you find that removal.
love this play from Zorkthar as well of just throwing out the Omega Assembly. It's in the control matchups, you obviously want to save it for the full value, but this is a Geist control matchup, and Kolmari, I imagine, will be throwing it down as soon as he can, primarily to deal with shield slams, because that's a lot of removal that you've just taken out. So maybe your Lich King and your Dread Infernal sticks. But getting rid of those Omega Assemblies isn't a bad side effect.
Yeah, when your opponent has to play a Spellbreaker for basically no effect on turn 4, you know you're in a decent starting position here.
And there we go. We do see the coin guys coming down for Kolmari. It's the same against Odd Warriors as it is against Death Rattle Hunters, as it is against pretty much every Druid, because getting rid of Shield Slam, Hunter's Mark, or Jade Spellstone is all very powerful at making your minions stick onto the board.
Do find it amusing, Zorkthar bringing that Tinkmaster, because he is probably the most complainy person when RNG goes against him in the entire world, and so he brings probably the most RNG card in the entire deck.
I believe
in the world.
To his friends, Zorkthar is the Salt Lord, from what I hear.
I think he is,
yeah. Which is a pretty high title amongst the peerage of saltiness.
But a lot of that comes from the motivation that he has within him. That's why he's managed to sort of do so well, helping Nordavind along the way.
Yeah.
Very, very driven character indeed. And I think he's going to BlizzCon. I might say that once or twice more, because we've had to hear it a lot.
Yeah, obviously in Hearthstone Global Games with Norway, Zorkthar, NTR, Hunter Ace, and Kolmari as well, all going to be heading off to find their fame and fortune at BlizzCon.
And it's interesting, because I've never seen him... He's always seemed pretty cold and calculating, even when he does well, apart from the salt we've talked about. So I didn't associate with him with being sort of the little kid running around going, hey, I'm going to BlizzCon. He's so excited.
Yeah.
Obviously, all the stuff he's worked towards finally paying off for him.
So a turn here for Zorkthar where nothing is perfect. It's one of those difficult turns where, you know, you could go Steel Rager and Hero Power... Steel Rager and the weapon to kill it off. You could go Tinkmaster for like a 25% chance that you're very happy. It was all like okay. This feels like a decent middle ground where you're clearing off the board, getting something there. He, I imagine, would have liked to have magnetized the Ziliax onto like the Steel Rager in an ideal scenario. But he keeps the weapon intact, which is very important because he's going to need a lot of removal going forward.
Indeed. And I've just realised why he chose this as more than a 50-50. It is that Tinkmaster against the Giants, because it shrinks them whatever it does.
That's true. It's just another answer going into turn 4 against the Giants.
If it turns into a 5-5, okay, not a disaster. If it turns into 1-1, the squirrel has a great sound effect and you win the game as well. So Kolmari's not just got a plan for now, but he's got a plan for the future. Playing one thing at a time against Warrior has never worked. You sort of have to make a swing turn at some point. So
fair enough.
And even Warlock isn't good at having those swing turns. I think it's something... Okay, turn 3 playing a Giant is a swing turn in its own right, but later on, because your good cards cost a lot of mana, it's harder to set one up. But the start here is this Giant. I think he needs to get it on the board. But he'll be considering how to use his stuff a little bit more carefully. And of course, it's very hard to have a swing turn because of Brawl, because of Reckless Flurry.
How'st ever, Lorinda. So you were asking for a swing turn. How does 4 mana deal 7 damage and heal for 7 and a 3 mana 8/8 sound?
That sounds good.
Sounds decent, doesn't it?
And so does the squirrel.
There it is. Zorkthar. I suppose we could have seen... well, I mean, this actually plays into that as well. I was going to say the effect of transforming is good against demons. Obviously, against a Hooked Reaver, you can deny the resurrection off of Gul'dan. But going with the Zola on it here, it's very possible that we see the Tinkmaster coming down on a Hooked Reaver as well.
My favourite sound effect in all of Hearthstone, by the way, is the squirrel attack.
Squirrel. How can you say your favourite sound effect is the squirrel when Bubblies and Yummies was just picked up by Kolmari? The Shroomburger is objectively the best sound effect.
I don't agree.
You don't agree?
Shroomburger is the best in the current set.
Fair enough.
I can go with that far. We'll have to fight about that later. But this really is just all the answers for this fairly close matchup normally. Very teched up. I think a lot of people expect a lot of even lock. We've seen a lot of even lock in tournaments.
Yeah.
Personally, I thought there might be a lot of Zoo. I think Zoo in Last Hero is always a bit tricky to deal with because it doesn't easily fall into a category.
I think there's actually more Zoo than even lock overall in the tournament. I could be wrong on that.
I think I've heard that actually. But
yeah.
I think Zoo in Last Hero is something you've always got to consider.
Yeah.
It's just like you normally categorize the decks. Obviously, it's sort of aggro.
Yeah.
but it's also really irritating aggro.
However, back in the game,
Oh,
although
it's a
that
game.
was a large swing turn, I mean, you were talking about how Evenlock struggles with swing turns in this game, and you've kind of been shown up because the most disgusting swing turns have been made turn after turn on like both sides here.
Yeah, and nothing's happened. Yeah, they're still exactly level.
It is surprisingly close, isn't it? Because we've been talking about how powerful Zorkthar's removal has
Yeah,
been.
imagine if it wasn't teched.
Yes, yeah. Because, well, what the shield slams were removed. Usually, you should not be doing this well against even Warlock when they coin Geist. So getting this far ahead, or at least staying even for Zorkthar at the moment, has been very impressive in this game.
Here comes
It's
the
going to start
haymaker.
turning around. Yeah, this is where it gets a little bit ugly for Zorkthar, because while he still has removal, you know, he can go Hero Power, Reckless Flurry at some point. He's still got Tinkmaster. That consistent hero power, the threats which are going to start coming out of the deck for Kolmari, makes this a little bit awkward for Zorkthar now.
Yeah, and the healing's actually relevant too, because the warrior struggles to
That's
put down an aggressive board. So just healing for 3 a turn makes it difficult. And obviously, when you get to fatigue, suddenly the Gul'dan hero power is just the best one in the game during fatigue, because it's a 6-point swing every single turn.
Pretty snap pick there for Zorkthar, so we couldn't even get to see the other options. But Sleepy Dragon implies pretty bad options, I would say, on the other ones. Or maybe it doesn't actually.
Maybe it implies he thinks he can go deep.
Yeah.
You know, just keep going
he
and
can
going.
just push his advantage on the board.
Because he'll get boom eventually and level this up to some degree.
I don't know if I agree with that, because his the 7-2 on board just gets hero powered away. Baku doesn't do anything here. So you're playing a 9-mana 4-2? I guess that's all right. Hero power isn't too important here, is it? Because you're probably going to be Reckless Flurrying at some point soon anyway. Okay, I guess that makes sense. Obviously, we don't know the other options, but...
Yeah, flurry management sort of very integral in this deck, I think.
Yeah,
one of the things
big
that
time.
we gloss over a little bit too much when we're casting, because it's usually either no armor or 37, so it just doesn't matter at that point.
Yeah.
But Zorkthar is using that to his advantage to buy some tempo.
So many.
As for Kolmari, the plan here really is quite obvious. He just plays the biggest boy he can every single turn, and is going to be using the hero power as much as possible as well, trying to wrestle back this board control.
Yeah, he is running out of big boys. It's going to be the hero power that's going to have to carry quite hard, I think, after this last round of Giants has gone.
Luckily, it tends to do that.
Luckily, it's very good.
Yeah.
Zorkthar, on the other hand, will be looking for some good delivery drones. I like a good delivery drone.
Well, he's got to find Dr. Boom first. In terms of his list, I believe he's running 2 Faceless Manipulators, so anytime that comes down, that's probably another threat on the board. And what he really needs here is to get himself in a situation where he can get a good Brawl or a good Reckless Flurry.
He also has Azalina, which is fairly common, which is why I haven't mentioned it earlier, but that's a thing that could level things up for him.
Yeah. You're not going to get Gul'dan anymore, which is the dream. But, yeah.
And he's probably quite a long way ahead in fatigue. We're talking about how good the Warlock hero power is in fatigue.
Yes.
But even though he's been geisted, Zorkthar's probably 3 or 4 cards ahead in fatigue here, I'd say.
I think he had 2 cards burned with 1 Assembly and 1 Shield Slam, and he's drawn 1 card off of Shield Block. So that's 3 cards overall that have been removed from Zorkthar's deck, but I think
Kolmari's been
Kolmari
tapping
tapped a few times. I don't think it's absurdly far ahead. I would put it at the moment at like 3 cards ahead.
But that's probably enough. Plus, he will have the hatchling. Well, obviously, Kolmari's managed to...
That turns things around a little bit, and burning Azalina is definitely one of the more impactful cards to burn. Not necessarily one of the better ones, because Zorkthar's hand as a defensive reactive hand at the moment is clearly fantastic.
But at some point he would like to have that Azalina to actually give himself some cards that do something. Otherwise you are relying on that delivery drone and your second Omega Assembly, which you can't use because it's not there anymore.
But it didn't burn Dr. Boom, which gets him 2 cards closer to a Dr. Boom, which he is obviously just going to be windmill slamming onto the board here and trying to get, hey, speak of the devil.
Here it comes. I always think that's got a really nice smiley face. Like
delivery drone.
Yeah. It's just sort of lights and stuff, but it looks like a smiling drone to me.
Yeah. Oof. And I have to imagine whatever mechs were offered probably weren't all too good. It's unpowered Steambot. Yeah, I don't know if I like the sound of that.
Yeah, it doesn't do anything. It gains you 9 health.
Which
if
is
you're lucky,
fine,
if it doesn't get Spellbreaker.
Because a turn of just stalling out the game, and you're not removing anything from your opponent with Steambot, but you're making them potentially overcommit in order to kill you in time, which means you can get a better Brawl.
This is interesting because the Faceless here.
What, you think of Faceless Tinkmaster like the absolute god Zorkthar is, and nail the Direhorn from your opponent. Oof.
Ouch.
Not perfect, but I guess while the death rattle doesn't really matter, it was really the 50-50 off of Tinkmaster that made the difference, and a complete board clear there for Zorkthar.
A kaboomed squirrel. Pretty cool.
Yeah.
And Kolmari is down to, what, a Hooked Reaver, which will never get activated now. And maybe one more Twilight Drake, I think. So he's down very low on big things now.
Yeah, the threats aren't really there, yeah.
I think he might be 3 cards ahead, but I wouldn't want to swear to that looking at the pack sizes. And Zorkthar's just gone to bottom 6 and Kolmari's been there a little while. And this is going to be close. This is going to be about not getting unpowered Steambots. Azalina, now you can see how big a deal it is, because this hand is going to whittle away from Zorkthar.
Yeah.
And just being able to steal some gubbins would actually be really handy right now.
It would be real good.
Not this turn, but in a turn 2's time at least, just to be clear.
And Kolmari just not opting to take the hero power on the 3-3 there, and instead getting it through to face, clearly showing what kind of a situation he's in. As with the Doom Pact being played, Zorkthar is actually, what, perfectly even in fatigue now, because Kolmari is about to draw.
Yeah.
So he's drawing first, so he's technically a tiny bit behind in terms of fatigue.
Notice that Zorkthar there has held that MC tech for a long time, but he gets to the point where Kolmari probably hasn't got more than 4 or 5 minions left anyway, so use it for a bit of tempo. And I feel like this delivery drone might be super important, because Zorkthar does have at least one more hatchling, so...
Yeah, there's the hatchling, so we could see hatchling faceless on a turn where he has one of the less good hero powers, like Kaboom or the microbots. He's actually just throwing out now, just for the...
he did get the nullifier from the drone, which is a big deal. It's usually the best card.
That's true, yeah. I guess that he wants to get the faceless on that.
Because the spellstones then become a little bit less useful.
Worth pointing out now in terms of fatigue, something that I wasn't planning on bringing up until the Odd Warrior Mirror, is Zorkthar doesn't have a least in his Odd Warrior, which would be real nice right about now for him, as he's heading into fatigue sometime soon.
That was the second Super Collider, so he's going to have to work to kill things from now on. And he has been whittled down to 11 by this collection of mini-minions.
Another brawl coming down. It's, like we said, it's starting to look like Kolmari is running out of threats, but it could be enough.
It could.
He doesn't need much. Just one minion sticking on board could be very important.
Zorkthar's using that Steambot really nicely here, I'd say.
Ooh, with a Beryllium Nullifier thrown on top of it maybe as well. Oh.
Yeah, he's found a place to get it down so it survives a turn. Like you say, he's going to nullify that. That's going to be one big minion.
Yeah. I mean, obviously there is the ability to kill it off now for Kolmari with the hero power and the Spellstone and the Ooze, but I think we can both agree that's a bit of overkill.
Kolmari reached for the Twilight Drake there and realised that Owl and Zap was not a good combo for it, so he's waited a turn. This is part of Dr. Boom showing you what he's going to do next turn.
And I like this from Kolmari. He's basically playing... well, he started off with Even Lock. Now he's basically playing Odd Hunter with that 3 damage going through to phase every single turn.
Dynamatic not in the best spot here, but...
Oh, this is nice. Look at that. Just demanding a silence from Kolmari, which I think probably isn't there anymore.
Yeah, I think it's gone. He silenced like a 1-4 on turn 4,
yes,
I think, just to get a spellbreak on board.
I wonder, is he playing 2?
I don't
in his
know.
decks? Yeah, I think.
We've got Zorkthar list in front of us, yeah.
Usually just the 1 spellbreaker.
But how's Zorkthar going to get armor if he can't roll the Dr. Boom armor? He might just die here.
He could get an Eternium Rover, I suppose, which would be worth something at the very least.
Now, these are open deck lists, and Kolmari should know that there's MC Tech in hand. Okay, there's other issues for Zorkthar right now. Like
I
you say,
think he's thinking that's fine, though. Like, something else has to happen as Ziliax off
there's
the top.
Health gain.
That's what you're looking for Zorkthar. That is absolutely massive. You throw that down magnetized onto this mech here, and look at the swing that can be made for Zorkthar, even with a pretty bad mind control tech. This is absolutely what he needed to pull this back.
And the mind control tech's pretty big as well here. You know, it didn't look too bad until Ziliax came to play.
And there's nothing left for Kolmari now. This was just the perfect series of mechs for Zorkthar, getting the delivery drone so many times in a row, or one-on-one.
And we must say, because we didn't see what he chose from, we felt that the Steambot was probably bad at the time.
We did.
But look what it's doing. And I think Zorkthar clearly had this in his mind, the way he set it up, because he didn't play it down as a health gain. He played it down after a brawl, so it couldn't be instantly cleared. It's a mixture of
Are we giving him too much credit?
It was probably bad choices, but he knew how to use them, and he takes it down and gets a 2-1 lead, and that was a super crucial game.
That was looking to me like Kolmari was just pretty firmly in the lead. He was ahead on fatigue. There were no threats coming down for Zorkthar. But after a pretty perfect series of mechs, maybe we're giving him too much credit with the idea that he would get Steambot, then he would discover when he didn't know he was going to the Beryllium Nullifier.
I mean, you're always
then
looking for Nullify. That is the card you're looking for. So if you've got to choose between what am I going to put my Nullifier on, Steambot seems okay, and he did hold on to it. It's not like he threw it out there randomly. He did hold on to it, so I think he played for that Nullifier. Again, the Ziliax.
Yeah, he might also have been keeping the Steambot for just to throw into a brawl, to have something good to survive a brawl. Either way, the upshot of that is that Zorkthar's counter Q worked, which in last hero standing is absolutely massive. After he took the first victory, if it goes in the quote-unquote expected fashion, where it's counter Q, counter Q, counter Q, counter Q, he should be winning this if... well, it's going to come down in no small matter to this odd warrior mirror, which is now coming up.
I had to listen to Delda and Darek this morning tell me, don't worry, Lorinda. There won't be many because it's not Conquest. Game 1 of the day, Odd Warrior Mirror.
Yeah.
Are you ready?
Yeah. I believe we, before we head into that Odd Warrior Mirror, we could use a little break to gather our thoughts, maybe come up with some topics of conversation.
Disrupting his deck too much. And he does that. He's done that for players even before Nordovin, like players like Glazer and such like. Yeah. He's worked with them on decks for as long as Hearthstone's been going.
And as we got a small peek at there from Zorkthar, that was a fairly easy keep, I think, on Dr. Boom and the Direhorn Hatchling. And thankfully, we also have a Dr. Boom for Kolmari. These are the Odd Warrior mirrors that I can stand.
I think where you both draw it or you both don't.
Exactly. As long as it's fair, you both get the, well, it's not a Death Knight, but the hero card on time or not. These are fine because it's a fairly even playing field now. They can both be discovering a lot of mechs, gaining a lot of armor with the extra 7 armor that comes with the Dr. Boom hero power. This should be a somewhat interesting game now.
Yeah, a lot of discussion as well. I mean, we've seen the opportunities, you know, with the Steambot in the last game. So what you take from your... I don't know, how many turns will it be? There'll be something like 20 turns of Dr. Boom. On average, that's 4 delivery drones. You probably hope for 6 if you, you know, do well with him. So you've got a little bit of room for planning ahead with what you take.
And this is... I think this turn from Kolmari is, I think, a good microcosm, a good example of the way this matchup should actually be played, where although we talk about it as a fatigue matchup, which it absolutely is, you don't want to be drawing cards, you want to be shuffling cards into your deck, it's not a matchup where you can afford to do nothing for the entire game. You don't just hero power every single turn. Like, if it was maximization of hero powers, we'd see Kolmari going hero power, hero power, hero power, turn 5, then Stonehill plus hero power.
It's not like the old Jaina Mage matchups where you had an exact game plan to follow.
In this matchup, it is about tempo to an extent, especially once Dr. Boom has come down. If you can stick a big Beryllium Nullifier minion, get chipping away at your opponent's health total, it probably won't win you the game in terms of immediate board control, but it means when you head into fatigue, you are at such an advantage.
Yeah, you're buying turns. You're buying cards. Every few damage, depending how deep it goes into fatigue, buys you 1 card, basically.
Which is why here for Kolmari, just a turn 4 mind control tech as well. It's a 3-3. Your opponent's never going to be playing more than 4 minions likely, or more than 3. So get it down. Start hitting them with it.
That's what they're doing. And already we have this fairly weird standoff situation.
It's not quite so bad as the infamous Taunt Druid mirrors, where it's just 4/8 staring down 4/8s for days on days on days.
They weren't fun. Yeah, at least this does have a lot of intricacies in how you get that damage through. The only sort of slightly sad thing is that damage isn't always as relevant as you would hope. Yeah, but it can be. We're talking in terms of 1 or 2 cards at the end of the game being the importance. Well, if you can sneak through 11 damage, that's turn 5 fatigue, turn 6 fatigue. Just gone. Yeah, it really does make a big difference, especially after Dr. Boom, because even more so for Kolmari, with him having Elise in his deck, he'll need to be clearing space in his hand. He doesn't want to just be using Reckless Flurries and Brawls for no value so that he can clear space from hand. He wants to be using cards in a good situation where they're doing stuff, which is what he's doing here. Yeah, I want to see how the Reckless Flurries get used in this match, actually. Okay. Because, obviously, you lose all your armor. Yeah. So do you wait until you haven't got much armor, or do you just not play them because you haven't got much to kill? Well, it's usually the player who is behind on board and
that kind of means behind on the game who has more value from their Reckless Flurries. But what you can see is that if one large minion is made, maybe something off a Stone Hill or something generated off Dr. Boom, if that does stick, they can't get enough armor to use Reckless Flurry, which can be very important in this matchup.
Kolmari played that instantly, which to me is interesting because phases in your hatchling is a big deal.
That's true. He does, however, have 2 in the deck, as does Zorkthar.
Excuse me.
We're going to have to get you either a cough button or a doctor, I would imagine, by the end of the day.
Thanks. Blame Ali.
And now for Kolmari. Still not wanting to go for the Faceless Manipulator. I think I actually quite like this play. This harkens back, to me at least, to a similar line of thinking that Zorkthar made last game, where he didn't go for the Dire Horn into Faceless on the same turn, because he wanted to get Faceless on a bigger minion. That's arguably more important, I think, in this matchup. While usually you do want to be doing it on a Dire Horn, because, again, you want to get that shuffle back into your deck. There'll be so many opportunities for that for Kolmari that he doesn't need to use it now on just a 3-2. Get yourself 2 3/6s, which are pretty powerful minions in fighting for board.
Just taking the opportunity to make Derek solo cast here. Every time he pauses, I just have a quick cough. But yeah, absolutely right with that is you've got to evaluate what a card is worth. And obviously, the more of this you play, the more you have a feel for what that card is worth. Is a 3/6 going to be better than the next card at the end of the game?
So the potential Giggling Inventor being played into here, I suppose, for Kolmari. But when you have a Giggling Inventor in your deck, you kind of have to be at some point expecting to play into that. And when you have a relatively innocuous board like this, you may as well be going for it now, sooner rather than later.
Nice roll on the R there.
Thanks, mate.
By me. Maybe not. So some of the hero powers are actually quite useless.
This one's not useless. It's not the premium one. Like, as soon as you get armor up, or sorry, I shouldn't say armor up, blast shield, or you get delivery drone, you kind of have to play that. Whereas microbots are fine. Obviously, kaboom, 1 damage to everything is the real dud. You just don't want to. I mean, if you have the spare mana, you play it, but it's never a priority.
The weird thing here as well, you can't judge who's winning by the health totals because Kolmari has played more of his stuff, for instance, right now, so he should be ahead.
Good point.
And we won't really see how it resolves unless something crazy happens, like someone sticks a board for 3 turns. Until much later on, it is just the accumulation of small value. And this is a lot of value gained here. Yeah,
I like this a lot from Kolmari. I was looking at the potential for Faceless on the Tar Lord, then you shield slam it, but Tar Lord just isn't good here. When you have minions on board, they don't need to be defensive. They need to be offensive. You need to be really killing your opponent with them as soon as possible. And while Tar Lord doesn't kill your opponent, King Mosh does. It kills a lot of stuff.
And what you were saying about the Faceless is really important now. Because if this doesn't get taken down, there's going to be a big old Faceless coming down.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I wonder if we'll see from Kolmari like you said, if it does survive, the Faceless coming down on it. Because, well, now that it's been damaged a whole bunch and killed off, it wouldn't matter. But with Baku the Moon Eater in hand, I think that would probably have been the first threat played anyway, just because the Faceless has more utility later on. Especially as Beryllium Nullifiers will start to be discovered off of either the Hero Power Delivery Drone or the Omega Assembly. Those are very likely going to be big players in this matchup.
And so far we've seen Kolmari playing far more big stuff, I think, than Zorkthar.
Which is why he seems to be ahead.
But he's
in the
only
immediate,
12 ahead.
In the immediate, yeah.
Is that going to be enough?
And this is probably going to be flipping around now, I would imagine, for Zorkthar, because while his armor total has been eroded pretty consistently here, he has got himself in a situation where he's starting to flip things back, and in terms of cards in hand at least, he's pretty firmly ahead.
Shield Slam is an interesting card in this match because you don't know when you're going to have armor, when you're not. So, for instance, he could use it now, just get rid of a 7/3, which feels like a waste, but he might not have the chance to Shield Slam again anytime soon.
Well, he definitely wants the hero power on this turn, because if...
So, what do you do with 7 armor? How long do you see that 7 armor lasting is the big question.
I don't think you have to shield slam, but the thing is, he had 5 mana left after going for the Dynamatic, and then the obvious play was clearly the Direhorn Matriarch.
Yes.
You stick a massive minion on the board. The reason he didn't go for that, and he went for the Omega Assembly, was so he can get the hero power in, so his shield slam's good. If he hero powers with the Omega Assembly, I like it. If he doesn't and just plays a mech, I would have preferred the Direhorn Matriarch because it was just more stats, which you always want.
Another thing about not playing the Direhorn is it keeps his Zola more options. So he doesn't know what he wants to Zola at this point. Probably going to be that Direhorn, but by not playing it, maybe you want to get another Nullifier later or whatever.
Good point.
So trying to keep his hand fluid. As you can see with Kolmari's is a little bit more static, where he's played a lot of his big minions. So he's now on the defensive firmly for the next few turns, where Zorkthar's been assembling the minions and Kolmari's been assembling the removal just because of how the first 6 to 8 turns went. Oh, that's difficult to deal with. That's a lot of... I mean, when I say the word a lot, I'm talking 6 or 7 potential damage to face here and there is a lot in this matchup.
Which is big. That is big. It's just annoying as well. It limits the mana that Zorkthar can use because all the while you have a threat on the board that they have to shield slam or reckless flurry or whatever, it means they can't go double 5-drop, which with a bunch of mechs and matriarchs in hand, they're probably going to want to do, or they can't just play Baku.
This Tinkmaster's really looking good.
Oh yeah, that's going to be big at some point. Because Odd Warrior, generally, if you make a big Beryllium Nullifier magnetized minion, they don't have an answer to it, but Zorkthar has that.
Super Zap.
Super Zap.
6 damage.
Yeah, 6 damage. That's quite cute.
Waited for that until he got the Zap. So Kolmari playing the ABC version of this, which is just get the Direhorns, like you were saying earlier, make sure you get a 3-6-1, not a 3-2. So that's 4 health gained, just like that.
Yep, good play onto the board. It can be reckless flurried, I guess, but Kolmari is fine with that because obviously Zorkthar has his own minions on the board.
Yeah, and you can't play around too much. As long as you don't go too wide and get yourself brawled, you're okay, I think.
Yeah.
And just like that, Zorkthar's armor total's gone ahead, partly because he's been the aggressor for the last few turns, and partly because he's had 2 rolls of armor, which I think is probably one of the worst ones, actually. It looks great.
Really?
It's not horrendous. It's 2 mana gain 7. That's great. But I think you just want delivery drone and nothing else.
Yeah. I agree. But I think it's probably the second best one,
It
right?
probably is the second best
well,
one. Depending on situation.
If you're behind on board, then I think Microbots or the Ray Gun could be a little bit better.
The Ray Gun.
I always call it the wrong thing. Zap Cannon, Zap
I
Gun,
make things
Ray
up
Gun.
as well. But
Yeah, Pew Pew McPew Pew Gun.
Wow. Why didn't they think of that? Well, Zorkthar's running out of hand space, which isn't a thing he'll be sad about, because you can keep things flowing out of your hand in this match. It's not like some matchups where you save either 6 parts of your combo or 8 removal spells or whatever that you can't play. This can just play a thing here and there.
I find that sometimes you can actually get in a situation where you just run out of hand space. And, you know, it's not perfect here for Zorkthar either, because he had to brawl a board that had 2 Direhorn hatchlings on it, and he didn't silence either of them.
Okay.
That sucks. That's really, really miserable for Zorkthar, because he wanted to play Silence. Maybe he wanted to play Tinkmaster on a Direhorn as well, but I get the suspicion he might be saving that for a big minion instead, which is one of the major ways you lose.
One thing I'm very thankful for, I said it might happen, is they're playing pretty rapidly.
Yes, they are.
This is a much more interesting game of Hearthstone than some of the ones where everyone ropes every turn. That's nothing you should rope. If you don't know the matchup, I'm not telling you not to rope. Yeah. If you're not comfortable with your play, you should take all the time you should. But it is refreshing to watch 2 players who clearly know what they're trying to do, play reasonably quickly.
I imagine it's not only because they know what they're doing, it's a deliberate advantage they're getting, because there's a lot of Hearthstone that has to be played today.
Yeah, it's self-preservation. There's a lot of odd warrior in the room, and if you bring control lineups to tournaments, we say it every single time, you can find yourself at the end of the day extremely tired, and everybody else has gone home and you're the last people playing. That can also happen.
Yeah. And because for both of these players, this is a matchup, like you said earlier, actually, that you usually get every card in your deck. It's obviously not the same game every time, but there's certain rules that you can follow pretty generally every time, which is not often something you're afforded in Hearthstone. Where, you know, you can just say, okay, you play aggressively for board where possible. You never draw any cards. You shuffle as much as possible. The combo is Elise plus Zola. That's what you save it for, which is clearly what all of these players have in mind and what they're doing.
Yep. And interesting to see that Zorkthar did keep that Zola without that Elise, as we were talking about earlier as well. So,
What, he kept it?
No, he doesn't have Elise, does he?
Oh, right. Sorry. I thought you meant off the mulligan.
Yeah, so he's got that as a utility card. We saw how he used it for the Tinkmaster to get rid of Giants last game.
Yeah.
And when you combine it with Elise, it's even more powerful. So interesting that he was... I wonder how you come to that decision. Like, you want to add this, you want to add a couple of cards, you know what you want to add, and you go through what should I take out, and you go, can I really take out Elise?
Elise, yeah.
Do I really do that? And then it's looking fine so far.
And I don't want to call it a misread of the meta, because obviously we're seeing an Odd Warrior mirror here. There's a lot of other decks as well. By far the 3 most represented classes are Druid, Warlock and Rogue, by a fairly wide margin, against which all of them, you know, Elise doesn't do that much. You're just losing against Quest Rogue anyway. You're just winning against Malagos Druid anyway.
And I was going to ask you, you've cast a lot of Odd Warrior.
Yeah.
Have you seen many games where Elise has actually been very good?
Yes.
You have? I've seen a lot of games where Elise has actually been kind of oversold.
Okay, so like the main value from Elise in the mirror, you never actually see. Or it's not obvious, I should say, because it's not the cards you get off the pack, it's the card in your deck. It's the extra pack that puts you an extra turn away from fatigue.
Sure.
However, you do open you up for the potential to get either another Elise, another Direhorn Hatchling, or a Raptor Hatchling, all of which shuffle cards into your deck. And in addition to that, in the Ungoro expansion, you can also get Spirit Singer Umbra to shuffle more cards into your deck, the Terrascale Stalker to shuffle more cards into your deck, even Molten Reflections you can just use to make another copy of your Direhorn Hatchling if you get that. There's a lot of ways that you can end up with 2, 1,
so
2, maybe 3
in
cards shuffled in. The mirror, Elise is massive.
Cast it against Mage a lot of times, and it's never enough. The cards you actually get in terms of, not the stuff you just listed, all the fantastic ways of getting more cards. And you've researched that really well. That's a lot of things you knew there. But just the... Against the Mage, the actual cards themselves are kind... There's another Elise. Are kind of mediocre.
Yes.
Soloing Elise, obviously he feels the need to just get loads of packs.
But then in the aggressive matchups, it's a 5/5 for 5. That's fine. It's one of the best statted minions in your deck, to be honest.
It probably is, actually, yeah. So Kolmari very much sticking to ABC, and Zorkthar just doing Zorkthar things is how this matchup's going.
Getting himself a gem-studded golem as well, which is fine. Perfectly good here just to get a little bit of extra stats on the board. One more threat to be fighting back against the onslaught that Kolmari has been putting forward, but now finally is starting to relent on. His big minions are starting to let up.
However, he's done, as he's slipped behind in health total, what has happened is he's gained in deck advantage.
Yeah, I guess so.
So his hand's gone a bit weaker, but while he's been busy focusing on filling his deck up with stuff, he's taken some hits because he's doing those things.
Yeah.
And again, until we actually see it resolve into the fatigue, who has the exact advantage is going to be very difficult to tell.
It is difficult to tell. Because it's not only who is in terms who is ahead in fatigue. That is not the arbiter of who is in the lead in this matchup. It's a big indication. And if you're drawing cards, that's just bad because you're more likely to be losing in the fatigue matchup. But it's often who has the I don't know how to phrase it, the last laugh, the last big minion on board is in such a good position, which is one of the main reasons why early aggression is so strong. Because if you put enough threats onto your opponent in the early game, they have to use up all their removal just to stay in the game. Thankfully for Zorkthar, though, even though Kolmari was on the offensive in the early few turns, he's kept most of his removal still in hand.
Yep, and he's going to need it. He's definitely going to need it. He's got Azalina. That's going to make interesting timing, especially when Zorkthar obviously has it as well. So how they get used, because whoever's behind can just level it up with one card and just go, okay, I want your cards because mine are bad.
Man, Kolmari makes his deck look so simple, doesn't he? He just picks up a guy, plays a guy, presses his hero power. Just nice and easy.
And I was thinking about Zorkthar as well. Whenever he plays Gemstudded Golem, straight after he gets armor, obvious, but like all those little things have just added up really nicely.
Oh, I drew a card. Let's play it and see what happens.
Yeah, more and more Hearthstone players seem to be saying, play your cards, they're good. That's what you put them in your deck for.
Yeah. Obviously, we're having a little bit of a joke around this. I'm sure much more going on in the players' heads than might first appear when they just play the card off the top of their deck.
Yeah, it's interesting that every time Delivery Drone comes up, the players think forever. Like all the long thoughts have been, how do I use this 2 mana? I have to empty my hand to put the drone in.
There are 10 cards. They have to dump something here, and Kolmari doesn't want to play any of the cards in his hand. This is why I somewhat disagreed with you in the ability to dump your hand, because what do you play? Reckless Flurry here? Like, you would have done that first, and it's not even good.
Do you give up on the drone? That doesn't seem good. But drawing the pack was a big sort of problem for him. He wants that towards the bottom of his deck when his hand starts to thin out. Yeah.
I mean, it's very, very unlikely, I think, that he will get full 5-card value off of each pack. I think he will quite happily take 3 or 4.
But it's just occupying space, for now. The other thing that's going on here is I think both players probably about now, and this is where I feel Zorkthar might have an edge, are trying to dump their hands for Azalina. Because if you can play 4 cards and get even 3/4 value out of each one, and then just Azalina your opponent, you're probably in front.
Yeah. Maybe Zorkthar will be more willing to go for that.
I feel like he saved a hand
Soonish.
that is more conducive to that.
Yeah.
Like Kolmari's got all this removal in hand, which he can't really use.
Yeah.
Zorkthar, probably about now, maybe after he's cleared this mini board, could just start to drop things like MC Tech, just put some things down.
This would be a good time for a master plan.
Wish he could get rid of that 2 armor though. He can zap face just to get rid of the Reckless Flurries, which would be kind of tasty right now.
Yeah.
But no, he's going to continue to do good stuff, but he is also starting to get things out of hand now.
Yeah, getting things out of hand, trying to get ahead on board against all the odds and get those cards shuffled back into his deck.
So I think it's going to be our 2 packs and maybe an extra card or 2 in deck. Because I think Kolmari has won that battle with the Faceless and the packs.
Yep.
Is that going to be enough to take on the fact that Zorkthar is going to get a good Azalina? I know he hasn't got it. We're going on the assumption you go through your whole deck.
Yeah.
And he's probably going to generate some damage out of these minions too.
I think we might be somewhat overstating how good the Azalina will be for Zorkthar, because you got to remember, the pack isn't the great bit. It's the shuffling in. If he was copying at least the Trailblazer itself off of Azalina, that would be absurd. I'm not trying to deny that.
But let's say he can turn the cards in hand into, let's say, arbitrary number, 12 damage.
Okay.
By just dumping them, forcing Kolmari to respond, he'll get some damage out of that. And then refill those cards for free.
That's fair, yeah.
That's a free 10 to 12 damage he's getting. Yeah, not really talking about the pack as such, just in the future when Kolmari's stuck with some big minions in hand.
I agree it will be good. I think the disparity between how good it will be for both players isn't that big.
I'm okay with that.
Because obviously, first of all, Zorkthar has to find it. He actually doesn't have the Azalina yet available to him, even though we are talking about it hypothetically later on when he draws his deck.
How silly.
Also, another benefit for Kolmari, which we haven't talked about yet, is not the ability to shuffle another card back into his deck, but he has no shield blocks in his deck, so it's not a completely dead card.
Yep.
Obviously, in an Azalina game, it starts to matter less because Zorkthar can just get rid of it when he plays
but it's
the
still been
Azalina.
in his hand, or
it's a card he can't play.
Time.
He's just not allowed to play that.
I feel like we've only seen like 4 delivery drones all game total.
Yeah, we haven't seen many, have we? It's been a lot of nothing.
A whole lot of 1/1s and armor.
Yeah.
And again, I think Zorkthar's had armor slightly more. Now he has got that Azalina.
Yeah, and you can't go for it quite yet.
Yeah, he's not going to do it yet, but this is now the place where he will want to start getting rid of stuff.
Yeah, there's not many good cards in his
when
hand.
you play your
back,
Backo, I feel like very soon, not when you've got 7 armor coming up. You just the next time you roll badly on your hero power, I think you just drop Backo and say, okay, that's one of your cards out of the way.
Sounds good to me.
But no, he's not going to empty his hand. He's going for the Omega Assembly. Ooh. Mechathoon, Garrett. Can it happen?
This always comes up as a meme.
And it's never even close.
Never going to happen. Yeah. There is no chance that Mechathoon ends up winning this game, even though it's a fatigue matchup. Like, I mean, who knows?
We're going to say that for the next 2
years,
years, and then one day it's going to happen, and whoever says it on that one day is going to look silly, but it's not going to happen.
I've cast quite a few Odd Warrior mirrors, and I have never seen it happen, even though I have seen it discovered off the delivery drone and Omega Assembly quite a few times, just because it's not bad.
I've seen people go for it to actually try and win that way as well, where they can't win any other way. Okay. They're just trying to get delivery drone into Mechathoon to have a chance, and I've still never seen it even look like winning.
I've seen it being chosen as a 10-10 with
But
Rush.
It is a good 10-10 with Rush. It's not a bad
fine.
minion. But yeah, you're never going to save it for that condition. Again, somebody might roll it when they're miles behind one day with 1 card in hand or something. And even then, your opponent probably just ignores it and fatigues you to death by putting taunts in the way.
Kolmari wondering if it's worth killing off one of these Goblin Bombs. I think for the potential of a magnetic minion, it's worth going for it. In terms of Brawl, would you rather... are you going to be developing, or is your opponent going to be developing? I think you'd rather have... If Kolmari is considering Brawl, I think he'd actually rather have more Goblin Bombs on the board.
Yes,
because
Zorktar's having one of those.
Yeah, Zorktar's just played Omega Assembly. Zorktar's just played the Diehorn Hatchlings. He's more likely to be developing in the next couple turns.
Kolmari's hand is actually just junk. I wonder if he's thinking of
Is it?
Hazelinaing himself here.
It's
It really is.
It's not that bad, is it? Like, it's not perfect right now because he doesn't have a way of dealing with the Mechathune, but he's got some good cards in there.
They're very reactive, and he's starting to... I know Zorkthar seems to have had more pressure for so long.
He's got the weaponized pinata, though.
Oh, no. We've seen a Rin come from this in this matchup before.
Well, that was against the control mage.
It was.
It was close.
Stop spoiling the story. Don't let the facts get in the way. Oh, my. Nothing happens, thankfully.
Yeah, it's just a...
It's just
a
if your whole
Chillwind
deck
Yeti
suddenly transforms into a Paladin deck as you get it.
with a full 30 cards in it, and you just win on fatigue.
Or you lose because the cards are 1/1s. Zorkthar has to go wide. Yeah.
That is a wonderful card to be generated there, and a solid meme as we move towards the end of this game. And that is a pretty sad burn there for Kolmari. It's not devastating. It's not a shuffle card. It's just a big minion. But it does matter. That could be pretty bad, actually, for Kolmari.
Yeah, in fact, to be fair, that assembly was a mess. Didn't get anything really nice out of it. There aren't that many good cards you can get as mechs. There's quite a big diversity between sort of the Nullifier and and Ziliax maybe and the rest.
Most of them are pretty poor, I agree.
I'm sure now we'll come up with 2 more examples. You know what I mean? They're mainly junk, and there's 4 or 5 really good ones.
Do you know what Whizbang says when you play him?
I did, and I forgot.
Really? I don't actually know. I've never played Whizbang as a minion.
Do it so we can hear it. Damn it.
It doesn't even have rush though, because it's not a mech. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah,
that's what we were saying, yeah.
Like, you can not burn a card, but any of those that you played wouldn't burn a card. Yeah, just get it down.
Yeah, you're not playing this for the amazing value. You're playing it because you're playing it. So Zorkthar's down to 1 card in deck.
There we go.
We're getting to the business end now, and it's very hard to see who's in front.
Yeah, I believe that's all shuffle cards for both players used up. If we could get a look at the number of cards left in deck, that would be fantastic.
But
just to see.
Faceless and...
Oh, wow, okay.
Second hatchling, so... A little bit more yet, but he is quite a way behind.
So with 2 cards shuffled in, that was 3 cards left. So I think Zorkthar is... There are equal amounts of cards, but Zorkthar is drawing first.
Okay.
I think is how it works out after these minions are... assuming that both of these Direhorns die and the Matriarchs are shuffled in.
So Zorkthar is slightly ahead in hand in terms of minion strength, I would say, but Kolmari has at least 1 pack.
Yeah.
And Zorkthar is going to have the chance to snaffle both if he waits long enough with Azalina, because Kolmari can't play the pack unless he wants to burn it, which he doesn't, because his hand is so full. And Zorkthar knows this. And I know I've talked about Azalina a lot, but if he can keep this slight advantage he's had for 10 turns and then get level in hand, he will win.
Huge. That would be absolutely huge. I agree.
And I don't see many ways where he doesn't get at least 1 pack out of this, which I didn't think was important earlier, but now he's got the tempo as well.
The way it happens is by Kolmari playing extremely inefficiently with his cards, which I'm not even saying is a way he messes up. It's something to consider. As with all Azalina games, you always have to wonder, is it best to make my hand as bad as possible? It's like when you're against Hogwaggle Druid. Like, do I just dump all the good cards in my hand and deck, fatigue myself for a bunch, just so they can't win?
And in general, you've got to be ahead on board to do that. And what Zorkthar has been doing successfully for some time now is maintaining his presence on the board so that Kolmari needs to be efficient, and he can't do his own. He can't just dump things, because then Zork will just Azalina him and be ahead on board, and that'll be the end of that.
And he's just been doing it with Matriarch after Matriarch, just consistent threats. And it's interesting to see, because Kolmari, we can both agree between, what was it, turns like 6 and 10, was pretty decidedly ahead on board. He was playing very aggressively, pushing a lot of damage. That's turned around now. Zorkthar is definitely starting to turn this around, or has been for a while
however,
now. And that is a pretty premium selection of Mecharoos. Not
Mecharoos. I know what you mean. Mechs.
I was trying to give it a fun spin on it, but
that's the trouble. All the words I've used in my Hearthstone history to say silly things have now been turned into actual names, so I can't have people flooping about anymore or anything.
Can I say Mechadoodle-Doos?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay, good. We'll go with that.
Okay.
And there it is. That is a very cool entrance animation. I hadn't seen that either. Surprisingly, Whizbang is not often played from hand.
Yeah. I don't think I've ever faced a Whizbang or a Whizbang deck. Well, then I probably wouldn't know.
You wouldn't know, yeah. You probably have.
Ooh.
And you didn't even know it. It's like a really bad horror movie.
It would be a really bad horror movie. It'd be very, very
If it
dark.
turns out that's the guy that's been hunting you all along, Whizbang the Wonderful.
It's like, why was I even bothered?
And now we are finally seeing it. Zorkthar not even bothering with the cards like Faceless Manipulator and Baku, because, I mean, why would you do that, play a really poorly statted minion or copy one of your opponent's minions, when you can just take them all? Just get a hand that's identical to your opponent with a pack to boot.
And notice that he did wait until after that second Omega Assembly before doing that. That's what he's been waiting for some time, I feel.
So. Well, I think that's partly what he's been waiting for. I think it's also the fact that he had run out of stuff to do.
Yes.
Really. Like, Baku is a threat, but it would have been taken out pretty easily on board. It wasn't particularly threatening.
Because he's not actually ahead on board either. He's very close. So, in theory, he's almost behind here because Kolmari's got the same hand and drew a card and gets to go first with attacker's advantage.
Yes, and the other very important thing to take note of here is that we've entered a double Azalina game. Both players can infinitely copy their opponent's hands turn after turn. It probably won't happen because that means you have to spend 7 of your mana each turn on a 3/3, which is obviously awful. However, it's something to consider here that if any point either player doesn't like their hand, just take their opponent's.
So Zorkthar has quite the health advantage, but he's behind on tempo. And I think this is where the game slows down, because now you know every card in your opponent's hand and you have to work out the consequences of all your actions.
Yeah.
And I feel like Zorkthar is firmly behind. Yes. But there's a delivery drone and a pack and plenty of time.
So, I mean, obviously he's behind at the moment because his last turn was a 3/3. And Kolmari had full reign to just go crazy on the board. Now it's Zorkthar's turn to use his mana well. This is actually a good turn now, whereas last turn was awful. Getting the old MCT value in there as well. This is a very nice turn from Zorkthar.
Beautiful.
Whizbang the Treacherous, it turns out here.
Oh,
For Kolmari.
that sounds like Whispers of the Old Gods too.
But Kolmari saying, you know what? I'll have it right back.
Come back here, Whizbang. We'll have none of that sunshine. Brawl in each player's hand, so board clear coming up at some point. And Kolmari has definitely all the advantages except for health total, and all Zorkthar, like air quotes, has to do is nullify the board. If he can just keep it level the whole time with taunts and stop Kolmari getting through, he will win in fatigue. However, that's a big
Zorkthar will.
Yeah.
Oh, do you think he's like?
I don't think he can do it, but if he can,
he's taking damage first. Like, yeah, like after what Brawl comes down on this turn, as I would imagine.
this levels it anyway.
Yeah. You deal with everything here. Like Kolmari knows this as well. He had a Brawl in his hand. He has not perfect information about Zorkthar's hand because a couple of cards were drawn, but very good information.
He has all the information because, apart from the very last card, because he knows what's in the deck. I mean, I'm not saying that the players can remember every single card over the course of a 16-hour Warrior Mirror match.
Yeah. I do question that sequence in there from Kolmari where he gave his opponent a minion at the end of the turn, which against Brawl is not something you really want to do. I feel like he could have hit the first security bot with his weapon because he didn't actually swing in with the weapon at all, did he? Maybe he thinks the weapon is too valuable there. Actually, yeah, that's true. I was kind of thinking of an automatic hit with the weapon because it lined up quite well. But against 2 big minions later on, having a swing with Super Collider is a massive advantage for Kolmari. That's potentially 4 minions he just kills.
This is so weird because Zorkthar can get infinite Brawl.
It's not a bad minion to survive at all for Kolmari. Can throw down a Ziliax on top of that for even more magnetic value.
Well, Zorkthar trying to break the mirroredness of this situation. Can't afford to play the things that Kolmari has, or he would just end up
trying to break serve after that round of Whizbang Tennis.
Whizbang Tennis. A wonderful tournament. Trying to look at this objectively is really difficult right now, but double nullifier is pretty good. Double pack, even though I was dissing the packs earlier, as it goes on they could become good, but you've got to use the cards or Zorkthar just goes Azalina.
Yeah. So what are the options available to Kolmari? Like, first point of call I'm thinking is just Ziliax magnetized onto it. Which, does look like what he's going for because it makes a big minion, it starts to trade quite nicely. The rest of what you do on this turn is less than perfect.
Yeah, it really is. And even having to play Ziliax before you're getting low on health is annoying to you because you've got a 6/5 that's gaining you 4 health.
Yeah.
If you could somehow get that situation to come up in 3 turns' time, it would be a much better minion because you'd gain 12 from it.
Do you remember with what's that card called, Piloted Reaver, when people were actually thinking of it as a card like, oh, could it be the new Piloted Shredder? Is it almost as good because you can guarantee you get a decent minion because it's one from
Were
your
people
hand?
doing that?
I think I heard a couple of people maybe. Well, basically, when I say thinking about it, I mean they didn't instantly call it complete trash.
Okay.
Which is what it is, obviously.
Yeah, I didn't instantly call it complete trash because I'm too scared.
And now the swing coming around for Zorkthar. The fact that his brawl was good, while his opponent's brawl is clearly doing nothing, is just such a big advantage for him here. It means what has to come down now for Kolmari? Iron Beak Owl, at which point, Beryllium Nullifier. Beryllium Nullifier, it pulls things pretty firmly in the lead for Zorkthar. So Kolmari has to rely on the Ungoro pack.
Elise!
And he gets another Elise out of it. And he can Shadow Visions the pack out of his deck if he wants to when he does that.
Oh my goodness.
He
probably doesn't
won't.
need a third pack, but even so, the Elise
God,
itself
that's so good.
is so much health gain. We can't stress enough how one card is a lot of health in this.
And surely he has to play it, because if he doesn't, Zorkthar will... Oh no, Zorkthar won't Azalina, will he? Because he's got a really good hand of Beryllium Nullifiers.
But does Kolmari
play
know how good this hand is? He doesn't know.
Yeah.
Kolmari might think those 2 Brilliant Nullifiers are just...
That's fair. I mean, he's clearly, whether it's through fear or through thinking it's the best turn, Elise is being played.
It's actually his best minion anyway.
Yes, exactly. That's what I mean. He might just be thinking it's fine. It's a good minion here.
Yeah, you beat Azalina with this play because it would be too slow.
That is such a big deal here. And now the pack coming down for Zorkthar as well, wondering if he can get anywhere near a comparably good pack.
That's a Tarim?
What's that? Tarim? Valspine's fine. King Mosh could be a big tempo swing. It could be good.
It's hard to know
but
if
it's
that's
not
good
Elise.
or not.
Yeah, it's all situational, isn't it? But like with these microbots, fine, make yourself a giant ball of 3/3s with Tarim. Maybe. It's not going to work out, but from Zorkthar's perspective, he had hope, I would imagine, at least.
Yeah, might still happen. Now he's got to decide, do I want to wait for that or not? This is now where you've got to play so many different things over in your head. What do I do with each of the boom options? And this is far more exciting than normal Oreo mirrors, I feel. Because of course the differences in the decks have made a difference.
Yeah, and we're actually getting to see the packs being played, which often you only get to see 1 or 2 cards generated from them. Kolmari, although I agreed with his play, I'm kind of disappointed we didn't get to see visions into another pack. So what's he got on this turn? Like, does he want to go for the brawl? Like, it's not going to get... Actually, no, it will get value otherwise, yeah. I was going to say, previously, before the pack was played, brawl wouldn't be that good. Now, I think this is fine. You just go for another pack, see what you can get off of this one.
Tyrantus is a good card.
Tyrantus is a good card.
I've also heard that gaining 7 armor is good at this stage of the game.
Yeah.
For Zorkthar next turn. And the board's going to be basically empty.
So as soon as Kolmari gets one of the bad hero powers, he can just play Tyrantus as a 10-10.
Yeah.
And what answer does Zorkthar have to that?
Well, at the moment, none.
King Mosh, I guess, is the best hope he can get. Maybe he can damage it somehow? I don't even know.
Yeah, because you're not exactly going to play around Tyrantus in this situation.
Yeah. And it is just starting to look worse and worse for Zorkthar. He's taking a fair bit more fatigue now. He needs to clear off this board, which he doesn't have the ability to do. So he's just got to play the Beryllium Nullifier, which gives Kolmari the ability to just start pushing everything face.
Got to watch out for that double Nullifier, though.
Yeah, good point. Good point.
Could be pretty naughty.
So
and you've got to get rid of the Nullifier if you want to play your Tyrantus, otherwise it does give Zorkthar an answer.
What does he do? Well, Kolmari doesn't know that there's a King Mosh in hand, obviously.
Oh, sugar, yeah, that's a good point. He does also have another delivery drone coming, Zorkthar. Both players have actually had pretty good hero powers last 2 or 3 turns.
Yeah. I mean, it's probably evened out right over the course of the game, considering they both got them on curve.
Just a reminder, this is round 1 here at HCT Oslo. 4 rounds of Hearthstone today, so plenty more action after this.
Absolutely.
And this could well go to game number 5.
It's looking that way at the moment. There is the lower health total concern for Kolmari right now, but he's even got the Blast Shield hero power now just to start evening things up a little bit in that respect as well.
It's still pretty close. I feel Zorkthar will be sad that he won't be able to play Mosh next turn if Tyrantus comes down. Kolmari dumping that Brawl.
Getting rid of that now could leave him open to maybe one big minion that he wouldn't have the answer to anymore, which will obviously be his concern. But
well, he's trying to also set up so he can actually play Tyrantus, because 12-mana Tyrantuses are awkward.
I'll agree with you there.
Only Druid can play those.
And that pack is just fine. It's just a bunch of minions, stuff you can throw out on the board, which is good here. You don't, I mean, the real high roll is shuffling cards, but that's very unlikely to happen.
Mechanical Whelp looks good. Is it quick enough, though? They're both running out of turns. There's not many turns left here. 1/7 armor hero power could definitely make all the difference.
Well, it means it kills a minion. At minimum, when Kolmari plays a big minion, okay, outside of Tyrantus, it kills pretty much any minion that Kolmari's going to be playing.
Zorkthar not sure which way to go with the Nullifier, but going for the thing that actually does something now rather than Mechanical Whelp. If he knew what his next hero power was going to be, he may have gone for it, because Reckless Flurry with a Whelp on the board would have been insane.
Man, it's so close. So if we were to see Tyrantus now, Zorkthar would have the swing that he needs in King Mosh to maybe salvage this game. Oh, Kolmari's just throwing it down because it's his best
bad
thing.
hero power finally, and now Zorkthar's going to have the Mosh, but he can't.
How much damage does he take? There's no charge available to Kolmari. Oh wait, sorry, he just took 7, didn't he?
Yeah, he takes 8 next turn.
So Razor Petal is not lethal, even with the 2 damage to face. Is it? That's 1 off lethal.
Wow. And there's not much damage in the packs, in general.
Yeah,
you can sort of not be too scared of them.
Yeah, Razor Petal and I think Flame Geyser are the only cards that can go face. But either way, well, he's actually going to be going with not King Mosh on this turn, instead clearing up, getting the hero power in instead, because he's thinking that's more valuable to him at the moment. This does mean for Zorkthar that next turn he might just not have an answer to what comes down on board, but he's hoping that the fatigue will kill off his opponent instead, or that he won't be able to represent lethal.
Yeah, so 8 and 9 will kill Kolmari over the next 2 turns.
Yeah.
Zorkthar, 8 and 9. If he takes 0 damage, which seems
very
unlikely.
Optimistic, yeah, because Direhorn or even Sabertooth Stalker here for a taunt, it will, for a stealth, sorry, it will survive because there's no armor for Reckless Flurry. Kaboom does not quite do enough damage to kill it off. And it looks like Kolmari's just going to have enough damage to get there. And I think if King Mosh had been played last turn for Zorkthar, it would not have made a difference, because there would have been taunts thrown in the way by Kolmari. But we can clearly see now, even with this big old hand for Zorkthar, no taunts he can throw down, no removal, no ability to deliver lethal. I think it's just going to be lights out.
Yeah, I think he was relying on his Azalina to be better than she was here. Zorkthar is dead next turn. It is going to be 2 games all, which leaves Zorkthar with his Even Warrior Warlock. Even Warrior doesn't sound like a good deck.
That was a fun deck. Did you see Jambray's Even Recruit Warrior back in the day? That was a very good deck. Well, it was a fun deck at least. But you are right, after a very long and grueling series, Zorkthar does end up losing. I guess we should maybe have expected that, given that he had no Elise in his deck, but he did have other aspects that made up for that, like we were saying, the extra Faceless Manipulator, the extra Iron Beak Owl. Maybe that was one of the biggest downsides for him, or shortcomings in that game, was that he had to brawl away 2 Direhorn Hatchlings when he didn't owl either of them. So his owls didn't get the Death Rattle denial value that he was looking for. Yeah,
and Kolmari seemed very accomplished on the deck as well. Obviously, over the course of the whole game, it's very hard to break down like who got the best of the hero powers, that sort of thing. But it did look like the extra cards just swung it for Kolmari.
Lightning fast Morgan for Zorkthar there, saying, okay, you are a big threat, you are not a big threat. And he is rewarded with a very tasty looking hand indeed. He can go Mountain Giant, Twilight Drake on turns 4 and 5 in either order. I guess if he wants to bait out a Shield Slam, he might go for the Drake first. But either way, after those initial threats come down, and hopefully for his sake get in a good amount of damage, he's even got Ghoulman already waiting in the wings to start delivering that hero power damage.
Yeah, this is going to be, we saw this the other way round, but this is going to be far more normal than those. Zorkthar's Warlock is basically completely standard. There's a Mossy Horror, there's no Black Knight, that's...
I think it's basically exactly the same as Kolmari's, but
Yeah.
Zorkthar has a Siphon Soul, Kolmari has a Black Knight.
But while Zorkthar seemed to be fairly well teched for this matchup, Kolmari is just running basically the bog standard deck.
Yeah.
So this is going to be very close indeed, and having 2 giants seems like a good way to stop it being close.
Yeah, this is pretty much the dream hand available for Zorkthar. He's even got the Ooze to deal with a potential Super Collider, which is sometimes the way they get enough value with their removal to kill off all your minions.
Yeah, the very start of this tends to be the important part with how you deal with Shield Slam and Reckless Flurry. If you don't draw your Geist, you've got to work out how you want to bait them out. So you Twilight Drake first, and say, I'm going to start taking your armor down with my Drake, so you can never have 8 armor unless you kill the Drake, and if you kill the Drake, how are you going to kill the Giants? Well, you've got to have multiple ways.
This really does feel like the agreed-upon play against with Even Warlock against Odd Warrior, because this is a situation that ends up happening so often in this matchup, because neither deck does anything really on turns 1 through 3.
Yep.
Even Warlock draws so many cards that the chances of having Twilight Drake and Mountain Giant when you hard mulligan for both is fairly high come turn 4. So you just play this first, it gets shield slammed, then you go double Giant, and Zorkthar is kind of just laughing.
Which is rare. So yeah, having to deal with it as you described, and that does mean he's going to get to keep his flurry for a while because this armor is going to stay high.
Yeah.
And now Zorkthar has to decide how much he wants to challenge the situation.
Oh, he is going big time in on the card draw here.
Now he might change his mind. Yeah, he's got the Geist, so
Wow.
now he can afford to take a little bit more time, try and hit that second shield slam. And this is a big enough threat. It's still got 4 attack. It's the same as a Twilight Drake in a way.
Yeah.
Because doing 4 and doing 9 are kind of similar in this situation.
I guess so. I mean, this is what you see fairly often. This is one of the major reasons why Geist is in the deck, in addition to naturalizers off of Druid. Yeah, I suppose the answers just won't really be there.
Yeah, and again, the armor is the key. It's the warrior's power for removal. If you can just put a 4/4 on the board and chip away that armor, they have to deal with it.
And this does mean that pretty much every turn through till Gul'dan now, there will be a respectable threat on the board. If it's Geist next turn, Giant next turn, Giant again, whatever, until Gul'dan comes down, this is a lot of very threatening boards.
And now, you know, he's in position where he can use the Giants, but obviously, talk about 4 attack minions, getting rid of the shield slams, Geist is better now, but things start to get very, very difficult for Kolmari in the short term.
Yeah, you know, Zorkthar's play, given that there was a second, there was already 1 shield slam, was arguably overly cautious because you do have 2 Giants in hand. They've already used 1 shield slam. Absolute best for them, they kill off 1 of your Giants with shield slam. But even then, it just means that with what ooze into Giant, it's going to be a very, very nice couple turns for Zorkthar.
And this
like
is a way of making sure that you have the 8 armor available for the Giant next turn. But also, it sort of deals with a Super Collider for Zorkthar.
Even the Lich King able to come down as well. This is just such a gorgeous hand for Zorkthar. However, while you know, we've been talking mostly about Zorkthar's plays, given that he is the aggressor in this matchup, and that is usually the more interesting side to look at. Kolmari here does have a respectable hand. He's got a good amount of removal with another Super Collider. He's got the Reckless Flurry. Even just a Mind Control tech is a constant threat for Zorkthar not being able to go too wide on board.
Yep, so... Ouch.
Ow.
That is so unlikely.
That is very, very unlikely for Kolmari, bless him. This is one of the reasons why I don't mind Dynamatic, is usually it ends up in the expected outcome.
I think it was like 27 out of 32 or something like that to succeed.
Either way, that's a pretty nice outcome there for Zorkthar. He will be hesitant about leaving up this ooze anyway, because he wants to fill up his board with good minions rather than bad minions. Because, well, it sounds kind of obvious when you say it, but to play around Mind Control tech, you don't want to have board spaces taken up with just 3/1s and stuff like that.
And then the Giant starts connecting face, problems start to occur. Yeah.
Yeah, I imagine, though, it should be a fairly easy... Super Collider or Coin King Mosh? I guess it is actually Coin King Mosh, isn't it? Oh, that's a big swing on board.
It really is. And still on 25 health, and Warrior does come back quickly if it does get control.
Yeah, and well, that was a good swing for Kolmari. Zorkthar says, well, you know what? Let's make a big swing back onto the board in my way, also setting up for a Bone Mare or a Lich King with limited answers now that the Geist has come down as well.
Yeah, 32-point stat swing there. 16 on one side, going to 16 on the other.
Disgusting. Kind of makes the old SI7 agent look a little bit less impressive, doesn't it?
Poor SI7. He's worked hard over the years. And still working hard to this day.
He is indeed. But because Dr. Boom hasn't been played, these Dynamatics, while after the rush is granted to them, are perfect ways to take out Giants or Lich Kings at the 8 health point. Before, just don't quite get there. So it's going to have to be the Giggling Inventor just to put a roadblock in the way. Which, I mean, it's all right at the moment. Defile on its own leaves 2/1/1 Annoyatrons on board.
Yeah, and if you crash in with a Giant and Defile, then the Giant actually takes a lot of damage, which you don't really mind.
Yeah, the whole point of Defiling would be if you can get Giant to connect face.
So you can Defile Hellfire and it connects face, but oh, that's a lot of stuff.
I wonder if we just see Gul'dan on this turn. You don't get any Resurrection, and he does want to go for pushing onto the board, but while he's already ahead, yeah, I guess the Resurrection is just too important for one extra wave. Oh man, it's just been swing turn after swing turn. Look at this turning around on each side.
And Kolmari's done it without using Flurry. There's been multiple turns where Rector's Flurry just looked like a natural, decent play.
This is the downside of going for Lich King as well. We have seen obviously one Super Collider dealt with through the ooze by Zorkthar.
Oh, but Defile into weapon here is actually disgusting as well.
This is just one of those games where it's just absolute powerhouse plays on both sides of the board throughout the whole game.
And now, yeah, that Frostmourne is such a big deal with a Lich King hidden in it. Coming back later with more stuff, because you're not in a particular hurry. The Warrior usually isn't just going to finish you off from 15 anytime soon. And you've still got the Ghoulman in your hand. Yeah, getting down to the hooked Reaver point is just so important because it doesn't often happen against Warrior. This is one of the major reasons as well why I would imagine Zorkthar goes for Gul'dan later rather than early. Is in this exact matchup we saw the other way round earlier on in the series. It was an early Gul'dan from Kolmari before he played either hooked Reaver, and he never got even close down to the 15 health mark because he was healing too much. Yeah, so we will see the opposite play this time around. You would think. One would think. And after all these haymakers have been thrown at each other, one player's on 21 and one's on 50, and not a lot's happened. Except Zorkthar does have that Lich King tucked away nicely for the future. Yeah. And actually how he uses this Frostmourne and how greedy he is with it will probably determine the outcome of this game. But this is why this is just such a cool matchup, because it's two decks doing such objectively disgustingly powerful things, but it somehow manages to reach a relative equilibrium. It's just a very close matchup. And I think people enjoy this when Hearthstone's like this, to play. Yeah. Yeah, you're doing disgusting things, but you're not sort of feeling like you're cheating. You're just hitting them hard and they're hitting you hard, and everyone's having a good time. It's like us casting. Yeah. You hit me hard and I cry a bit inside and then try to hit back. And everyone's having fun, right? And everybody's having fun. Yeah, it's great. I love it. But the ooze coming down does set up for a very nice mind control tech here for Kolmari. A cute play. And if he can steal the Lich King, that would have been absolutely disgusting. Or even either of the two big guys. 50-50 to be very nice there. Unfortunately, though, for Kolmari, that is not the minion he's looking for. He has managed resources incredibly well here, though. Still got both his flurries left, Ziliacs, all these things that looked good for a while. Oh, Super Collider has been so good this game. It's really killed off, what, a Giant and a Lich King, and then a resurrected Lich King and a hooked Reaver as well. And now what does Zorkthar do? He has no counterplay against this massive board. Trying to work out if there's a Hellfire Defile Spellbreaker play in here. Yeah.
So many possibilities.
Well,
Your magic shall not
seems not.
Yeah, he's giving it his best shot, but in the end, just has to set up a big taunt wall, hope that that will get the job done, but I believe after a silence comes down, that is going to be, after a grueling, very long, hard-fought series, Kolmari taking the victory in a matchup that I think we both agreed at the start. We liked Zorkthar's spot.
Yeah,
we
especially
like
when that rogue went down early.
Yes, exactly. That was a big win for him, because if that